Going around the table, do you consider yourself a feminist?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Into the mic.
Absolutely.
What's the first rule of Fight Club?
So is that a yes?
You answer the question.
Yeah.
That's the first rule of Fight Club.
Yeah. So you are a feminist?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I feel like there are different definitives in today's age that, I don't know, might extend some boundaries on feminism, but I still do consider myself like a feminist. But I think there are some kind of, like...
There's aspects of it that you reject and aspects that you accept?
Well, I think just in terms of, I think everybody should have equal footing, and the thing that I don't like is when there's hate towards either gender, and I think that's unfair. So I consider myself a feminist.
Okay.
For equality.
I am not a feminist.
I am definitely not a feminist.
I am not a feminist.
Andrew, are you a feminist?
Absolutely.
Not.
No.
You asking me?
Yeah.
Couldn't be less of a feminist. I am the official representative of the patriarchy. Let's go.
I love the patriarchy.
Give me some.
What do you mean womp womp? What do you...
That's what we're here to
Are
argue
you
about.
not aware that patriarchy is based?
I just threw up in my
Didn't
mouth.
the
Do you know who,
patriarchy
like,
work for Mike?
Reagan would never say that.
Okay, do you know who owns
President
OnlyFans?
Reagan.
Oh, snap.
No.
Here we
I've
go.
actually had
Oh yeah, we can.
It's a white man. You guys,
I don't like that.
but you
And men-
capitalize off of it.
Men created
And so did
No,
sex work.
they're capitalizing off of us.
Yeah, so are you.
No,
You're also
I
making
didn't
money off
capitalize
of them.
off of him.
No
No.
one's forcing
Are you
to go on
supporting the
OnlyFans,
patriarchy by
though.
doing OnlyFans?
You
No.
make an active decision to do that.
Historically,
Yeah.
that wasn't the case though for sex
my
work.
OnlyFans wasn't my
Sorry.
first form of sex work.
Wait, historically what now?
Historically, sex work was made by men, so they wouldn't rape the good women of the town.
Bro. I just want to come in.
So they went our word.
There's been a few responses you've given to questions. We are trying to have, there's moments to be humorous, moments to just answer the question immediately without, like, what is the first rule of Fight Club? You can just answer the question.
Okay.
We gave you pre-show instructions not to say certain words. If it's absolutely necessary within the context of the conversation to bring it up, use like SA. I'm sure you know
Yes.
what that can stand for, okay? Okay,
I
go
realized.
ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead with your point.
So when sex work first started.
When was that?
That would probably in the 1800s.
Sex work started in the 1800s?
Yes, where there's prostitutes.
Prostitutes
illegally.
started in the 1800s?
I'm not sure exactly what time, but I would like to.
So you're not sure that sex work or prostitutes started in the 1800s?
It's historical.
I am 100% confident that prostitution did not start in the 1800s.
Okay.
I
well,
can assure you.
Okay.
So anyway, go ahead.
Okay. So sex workers were forced by men of the town, of different towns, because they would have wives and good women of the town that weren't considered slut. Can I say
You can say slut.
that
That's
weren't
fine.
considered sluts or the whores or whatever the terminology. So they developed sex work so they wouldn't rape those women.
Bro,
and they would.
are you brain dead?
All right.
Grid One
I think you should
Motorsports
probably too much of a
donated
liability.
$200. The guy who owns have paid himself $1.3 million a day last year, and still owns the billion-dollar company. You are the product. Feminism has failed you. How can the patriarchy help you today?
Yo, thank you.
Insanely based comment, Grid One.
Thank you, Grid One. Appreciate it.
What's your guys' definition of feminism?
Hold on.
Hold
Is
on.
there something you want to say?
Yeah.
I never finished my point.
Okay.
Wait, but hold on. Are you aware of what you just did again?
You can explain it because I.
Okay. I asked you before the show. We said don't actually say that word just because it fucks with YouTube, whatever. You said it, and then not just now, but earlier. And then I said, please use the word SA. Are you coherent right now?
Yes.
Why did you say the word again then?
I said the word again.
What? Are you just not that?
I feel
Well,
like I feel like
I
this
wasn't able
woman's
to
a
finish my
liability
point,
to
so
the
I
show,
lost
Brian.
my.
Okay.
I feel like she's
I
a
lost my
liability
train.
to the show.
We'll give her more chance, but Please, like
I'm trying not to.
I think
I'm not going to.
if you need to use that word, just say essay. We all know what you're talking about here at the
R
table.
word, I understand. Yes.
Or the R word, I guess. That's
just-
fine.
when I'm feeling
hey,
cornered-
excuse me one second. I think for the sake of your channel, one more strike, she's out.
Depending on what, but please. I mean, we've had to tell you multiple times. Okay, so
I understand. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Continue with your point.
It started so men wouldn't SA women of the town who are considered whores. So it's a job that was developed by men. So yes, it's been developed by men through time, and OnlyFans is owned by a man.
What evidence do you have for what you've just said? And then Andrew, if you want to come in.
Yeah. So just out of curiosity, I want to make sure I got this right. So I don't want you to feel cornered. I just want to make sure that I'm giving back what you're saying to you. Are you saying that small towns in the 1800s developed systems for prostitution so that the men there would not sexually assault the women?
And yes, and I'm not saying specific. I don't know what time period, but whenever sex work started, yes.
Whenever that's well, I mean, sex work's been around.
It's been around in
immemorial,
America,
right?
at least, because we're one nation under
It's
God.
been around since America's founding.
Yeah, since America's founding, sex work has been a thing, and it was started to prevent that from happening.
To prevent sexual
because
assault.
there's good women and women who are considered whores. They
So would
they
you
would
say
know.
then?
So they would be coerced into that.
I understand what you're
that
saying.
line
So
of
would you
work.
say then that you think that women who operate as prostitutes would have been less likely or more likely to get sexually assaulted by men?
It's a great question.
The reason why they were even in that job is because they were more likely to be SA.
Yeah, but do you think that they would be more likely or less likely to be SA'd as prostitutes?
The whole point of them not being SA'd.
He's not asking you about the point of them. It's a simple question. Do you think they'd be more likely or less likely to be SA'd as prostitutes?
More likely,
Yeah,
yes.
right. So
That's
then-
just
so then if the
it's
system was
it's
to
always
do
more
that
likely for
to-
sex workers to be SA.
So I just want to make sure I got the system right. So if the system is this is being developed in order to cut down on SA, and yet you're putting women in a position where they're more likely to be SA'd, does that even make sense to you?
Essay of the good women is what I think she said.
I don't know if you're understanding my point. I'm talking from a historical where sex work stared in the beginning when America was found. Like, it's been around forever.
Where did you hear this? Where did you get this information?
I've looked up multiple articles and historical.
Here, you wanted to come in? Go ahead.
Because I'd like.
Yeah, what she's talking. So like, what you were saying is like, wouldn't they be more likely to? A lot of these women that were put into sex work in times like that, they had already been SA'd by the time that they were like of
they
puberty.
They were considered the town.
They were seen as dirty, so they were not. Nobody wanted
and coerced
to marry them.
into doing.
Why were they considered dirty?
Because if they weren't married, if they weren't
because they weren't married.
Yes.
So in other words, the societal standard says to them,
yes,
our standard is that you can't step out, and you can't have sex outside of wedlock, you can't do these kinds of things. They did that anyway, violating the societal standard. So the men went kind of pushed aside and went, you're undesirable, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if they're undesirable, you're saying the only way they could carve out a living is to be prostitutes?
They didn't make. I'm trying to make a point that they were coerced into doing it to prevent men to not SA the good women of the town, because those men would be married and they would step out of their marriage, and so
I got it. So walk me through this.
Of the city or the town.
Do you think that men got around at a table inside of one of these towns?
I'm not. These women did not decide at the beginning. It's decided
listen
now.
to his
Group
question.
one
Hold on just one sec. Hold on just one sec.
$200. Brian, you should have kept the super chats at $99. The same is likely this poor gal's IQ. The delusion is super strong with this one. Feminism has nothing to do with anything this girl is talking about.
Grid one, thank you, man. We'll probably lower it later on in the show. It's just we want to get through this early part quickly. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, do you think that men got in a room and they were like talking in one of these towns? One's like, hey, Chuck, I'm really worried about the virtuous women of our town being sexually assaulted by Steve over there. So why don't we take all the undesirable women and we'll just make them all prostitutes so that doesn't... Does that even sound realistic to you?
That's where brothels were developed.
No, that's not how brothels were developed.
Then can you explain how they were?
Yeah, brothels are developed because women can make easy coin being prostitutes, and many of them have no skills or didn't desire to have any skills. And a lot of people moved. A lot of women actually migrated from eastern areas to western areas in order to become prostitutes during the pioneering phase, because they made a ton of money during the gold rush. So these were choice-based things. These weren't, nobody forced them into it. It's ridiculous.
I'm not saying it's forced. It's that these women were casted out from society for not getting married or being considered.
Yeah, so they were shunned. That's true.
They
but
were shunned.
No patriarchy got together and was like, you must be a prostitute because we're shunning you from society. You're not even shunned, really. You're a social outcast because you're not desired by men because you have violated the rules and norms of society.
Hold on. You go, and then you go.
Yeah,
and then Sav, go ahead.
You keep talking about
Can you scoot your mic this way, please?
You're evading my... You're doing a debate thing.
Excuse me.
Hold on.
Stop.
Go ahead. You go, and then Sav.
So what I said was that these women had already been essayed before they had ever entered sex work. And then you said, well, these were their choices.
No,
you said that because they're impure. So you think that because a woman is impure, if someone else has done that to her.
The claim that women engaged in prostitution because they were essayed and that's why they engaged in is ridiculous. You could never prove that.
That wasn't the point I was trying to make. You're doing
Go
a
ahead,
debate.
look up any study that you want that prostitutes were only prostitutes because they had been
So do you want me
essayed.
to find a study about how many prostitutes have been sexually assaulted
That's not
before?
the claim. The claim that you made was they were prostitutes because they were essayed.
No, I'm saying that's what happened before. The likelihood.
What's your point? Go ahead.
I would like to say that the patriarchy is not a group of men, a specific group of men. It's like a description or a describing word to, or for social structures that we have, ingrained into our society and ingrained into a variety of societies and cultures. So it's not just one group of people. Also, sex work. Sorry.
Who's at the
That's fine.
Who's at the top of that though? Inside
There's
of the
not
patriarchy.
a individual that's on top of.
Then what's a matriarchy?
Led by feminine values.
So then there's somebody on top of the archy, right? That is female in a matriarchy.
So it depends on what you're using the word for. So like when we talk about
matriarchy, not patriarchy.
I know they're like opposing words, like for different.
Yeah, but who's on
situations.
top in a matriarchy?
So in a matriarchy, a woman is on top. If we're talking about a matriarchal society, but whenever we're talking about a matriarchal society, we're usually using it in a historical context. So we're describing how a specific society functioned, like within their households and stuff like that. When we talk about the patriarchy in a modern context, we're talking about the qualities and structures that a society has within it. So I would say, to just throw in a point that kind of correlates with patriarchy, capitalism is a patriarchal structure that we have within our society and within a lot of societies.
So just to make sure I got the definition down.
Hold on.
Oh, sure.
No. So you go.
I was just wondering. I just want to make sure I get the definition down. So women can be in charge in a patriarchy?
I mean, a woman could be a manager at a job in a patriarchy.
That's not really my question, though.
Okay.
So you're saying that this is a developed system, and this is a descriptor for how the West works, or how different nations work. You're using this as a descriptor for the systems, and the systems are what creates a patriarchal system. Can at the top of this patriarchal system exist all female leaders? Theoretically.
I guess if the women were upholding patriarchal standards, then yes.
So why wouldn't that be a matriarchy then?
I guess it depends on the definition that you're using.
Right, that's what I'm using here.
The connotations.
It seems to me that patriarchy has no meaning if you're removing men from being at the top of the patriarchate, right? Just like matriarchy. Could you imagine how foolish it would sound if I said, there was this great matriarchy with a king and princes and everything that wasn't matriarchal, right? So this is why I'm trying to get kind of your definition for these systems.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I think what I'm saying that's not getting across the way that I want it to be is that there's different kind of in between the lines depending on what situation you're talking about, matriarchy.
So here's a clarifying question for you. I'm going to simplify it. He asked you if it could still be a patriarchy if there's women at the top managing it, and you said if they're upholding patriarchal structures, it could still be a patriarchy. What do you mean by that? What are those patriarchal structures that those women at the top would theoretically be upholding?
Capitalism would be a good example.
Women benefit from capitalism. You benefit from
Anybody
it.
can. There's benefits. There's benefits and negatives.
Wait, so are you against capitalism?
Theoretically, yes. I think that there are ways that it could become better.
In practice, you do OnlyFans, so theoretically, you're not against it.
I have to be able to live. I have to be able to live.
You're taking advantage of capitalism in order to live. Okay. Are you more in favor of like socialism or communism?
Yeah, what system? If you don't like capitalism, what system would you prefer to see?
Yeah, what's matriarchal?
Capitalism is when you're
Stop.
working
Hold on.
under.
This is a question for her.
So, I guess by definition, it sounds very radical of me, and I do consider myself to be a radical feminist. But I guess communism, the very simplistic definition that I have of communism,